Hi, I'm Phil Bainbridge, and in this video, we're going to take a look at editing a cell and using a trigger in order to change the background color of that particular cell. So in your Google Drive folder, if you want to go to New, Google Sheets, and if you want to give your sheet a name, we will call it in this instance On Edit Cell Demo. And then if you go to Extensions and AppScript, if you give your project the same title, so On Edit Cell Demo, on the left-hand side here, we'll give the AppScript file a relevant name as well. So we'll go rename, and we'll call it On Edit Cell using the camel case naming convention. Let's also change the name of the function to On Edit Cell. Just pop your cursor in the middle of the brackets, hit enter a few times just to give yourself some space, and click save. So as I mentioned, the purpose of this demo then is we want to be able to edit a particular cell anywhere in this Google Sheet, such as typing a value in, and automatically have the background color of that cell change to a color that we specify. So in the AppScript editor itself then, let's start with a comment using 2 forward slashes, just so we can keep a track of what it is that we're doing. In the first instance, we need to get spreadsheet. So we're getting something, which means we're going to store this as a variable. So I'm going to say var, and we're going to use the usual shorthand notation for spreadsheet as ss. So var ss equals, we're working in a spreadsheet, so we're going to use the spreadsheet app. So capital S and a capital A, and it should turn a pinky color. If we put a full stop in for the method, we need to get the active spreadsheet, basically, is what we're doing in the first instance. So if I start typing in get act, we can see there's a few options, and one of those here is the active spreadsheet. Because basically what we wanted to do is target anywhere in the spreadsheet itself, not a particular sheet name, but anywhere that somebody could be typing. So just remember your open and close brackets and your semicolon to end the line. Click save to check you're happy. On the next line then, we need to target the specific cell that the person is editing. So let's pop in a comment, and we're going to say get active cell. So that is the one where the person is doing the typing. We're getting something, so we're going to store it as a variable. So we've got our var, and I'm just going to call mine active cell using the camel case naming again with a capital C for cell. And I'm going to set that equals to. So we've got the spreadsheet stored in a variable called SS on line 4. So if I do SS, full stop, and what we want is getting something. So if I start typing get, and it's just slightly cut off a bit, if I just stretch the size of the box there, you'll be able to see get active cell is the top option like so. So capital A, capital C. Again, open and close your brackets, semicolon. We don't need to type anything in here at this point, but hit save when you're ready. So now we've got the active cell. The last thing we want to do then is to change the actual color. So I'm going to insert another comment here, and we're going to say set active cell color. Now we're performing an action here. We're doing something. We're not storing an output. We're not getting a value back. So we don't need to store this as a variable at this point in time. So we call active cell down here because that's what we've got saved. You can start typing it in, and the variable will pop up there for autocomplete. So I'm just going to hit enter and let autocomplete do that for me. If I put my full stop in, I get loads of different things we can do with the active cell. But the clue in the comment is we want to set the color. So I'm going to start typing the word set. And there's quite a few options that we get here. What we're looking for is set background, singular. We don't want the plural version of this because we're only dealing with one cell at a time. So set background. And if I open my brackets here, what I'm just going to do is shift the code down a little bit so you can see what the message we're getting is. So what we're looking for set background color is a color defined as a string. Now, as I mentioned here, we can use some various notations using letters, or we can actually just define the color itself as a particular word. So as an example of what it is that it's looking for, that gives us a clue as to how to type this. So if I just return that up there like so, all we're going to do in this instance then is in between single or double quotes is just type the color that we want. So I'm going to do yellow in this instance. It should turn slightly red to identify that it is a string. Hit save to check you're happy with that. So we've got the code, we've got what we need, but we haven't got anything to connect it directly to the actual Google Sheet itself. If I start typing in here right now, nothing is going to happen. That's where our trigger comes in. So if you move over onto the left-hand side here, you've got a few different menu options, and one of those is called triggers. If I click on triggers, I end up with a page like this. If it's the first time you've accessed triggers, you may end up with a dialog box in the middle, sort of welcoming you. You can just click away from that and remain on this page as so. At the bottom right, we have the add trigger button. If I click on this, there's a couple of things in here that we're going to want to look at setting. First of all, it tells us which function is going to run. Now, we only have one function in our AppScript code, and that was the one we created called onEditCell. If at a later date you had multiple functions happening, you would just need to check that you've got the correct one selected. But for us here, there's nothing we need to do. We don't need to change anything with the deployment, and we don't need to change anything with the actual event source as well. We're working on a spreadsheet. What we do need to change, however, is the event type. And we want to select on edit because we want this to trigger when somebody edits our spreadsheet. If I just scroll up again, the last little thing that you may wish to change is the default duration if you have any errors. I tend to like to change this to immediately. Otherwise, what it means is when you're developing the code, inevitably you might have a few things go wrong. It would, by default, wait until the end of the day to send you an email summary of all of the problems it's encountered, which can be a little bit off-putting. So if you get it to notify you immediately, at least you're receiving any emails at the same time as troubleshooting it, that you can clear them away once you're happy and you're not getting bombarded with anything later on. So once you're happy with that, if you scroll down and click the Save button at the bottom right, this is now going to ask us to authorize the script, and it's going to ask us about the Google account against which we want this code to run. So all of the code at this point in time will run as the Google account that we specify here, regardless of who is actually doing the editing in the Google Sheet. So this is what it looks like at the moment. There's no last run date because it hasn't fired yet. We haven't got any errors at the moment because it hasn't done anything as such. So there's nothing else we need to do here other than simply go to our Google Sheet and start typing something in. So if I put the word awesome in a cell there and hit enter, you might find the first time you do this, there's a small lag of several seconds just as the trigger gets up and running and figures out what it's doing. Don't hesitate or worry about that. But as you can see quite quickly there, entering some text in that cell changed its color immediately. Again, if I start typing something elsewhere and hit enter, the trigger runs and it deals with it. If we just jump back to the trigger page, for instance, on here, if I refresh this now, just using the refresh button at the top left, you can start to see there's a bit of a timestamp information as to when it last ran. We also have no errors at this point in time. You can also use the executions option on the left-hand side to actually see each individual circumstance as to when it was running. So if you ever did any login, you'd be able to access this information from here. And remember, you can always go back to your AppScript code using the editor on the left-hand side. But that's it now. Going forwards, any edits on this Google Sheet will cause the cell background color to change. Thank you very much.